This podcast is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Currently, you can get free delivery on all orders over £40 and 10% of all online orders by using our code of TakesThatChance10.
Jepson's there, Billy in, a goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life. Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town. Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the flame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted. Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Welcome to episode 82 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. In another topsy-turvy week of results, we've got a very topsy-turvy about-face panel as we look at another double game week and the goings-on of the last week at the club. On the podcast this week, joining myself, Matt Shaw, we have Richard Kozi Kosmala, Neil Wayne, Simon Copland, and Dan Pozza wearing Bradford City colours in the corner. Porritt, so how are we doing this evening?
Good, thanks, Matt. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. I'm all right, yeah. My agenda's been wiped out this week, so this might be a little bit sketchy, but we'll see how this goes, eh? So it's a double game week. I thought what would be quite good is if we start with the game, the freshest in our minds, shall we go? So Bristol City last night. So for me, Bristol City came. I thought they were quite poor, to be honest with you, especially for the first hour. Not so much after that. They tended to sit very deep. Naki Wells hit the crossbar early on, but I thought once that had passed, I thought Huddersfield were the better side. The touch from Fraser Campbell on the goal was magnificent, as was the rest of that as well. What did you guys think? What did you guys think of the game from last night in general? And how did you think it went? For me, just saying that it seemed to be a reasonable start, and then we seemed to run out of gas very quickly, and we seemed to get outthought as well on the pitch, and it followed a very familiar trend from Preston, whereby we concede one, and then all of a sudden head's gone, and we're absolutely all over the place, and that's where our game management seems to go completely out the window. Poz, I'll come to you because you watched the game.
Well done, son.
That's two. No one's had any ribbon yet. It's just Poz getting it. Just Poz getting it tonight. Sorry, mate.
I don't have time on weekends, but midweeks I'm there.
Poz, talk us through your feelings on the Bristol City game then.
I thought first half we did all right. We did what we usually do. We got forward in numbers. Didn't sort of threat too much. I think probably best chance of the half were Naki Wells, hitting bar. We had a couple of shots, but not really too troubling for Bristol. And then into the second half, it were the subs for me that sort of really changed the game. Not just from Bristol. Yeah, they brought on the quality when it's Semenyo, or however you say it, came on.
Semenyo, yeah.
Yeah, Semenyo, he were quality. They changed the formation. They sort of moved from what looked to be a 3-5-2 to a 4-3-3, and then to a 4-4-2. And their subs were just a little bit more quality than ours. They actually made an impact into the game. Patterson came on as well, and enlivened things up for them. Whereas our subs for me were very much like for like. We brought on our subs, and we didn't really change any sort of style of play or how we were, sort of before they came on. It was interesting to note as well that before Bristol made their subs, we were dominating in pretty much every statistical department. And when they made their changes, we just didn't seem to get to grips with it quick enough. They seemed to the possession went up for Bristol, and they created a lot more chances and stuff like that. I think a lot of it is down to what you've just touched on, Matt. I think a lot of it's down to the squad size. I think it's still, we've been over it before, but we can't really do much about it now, but still too small and still lacks a little bit of quality coming off at bench. We were a little bit of a change up front might have helped things yesterday. Obviously, we sent Harrott out on loan, and Phillips and made the bench. Noticed, I think he scored 7 in 3 though from B team, so we might see him appear on there after international break, maybe. Keeping a lead, I think, is one of the things that we've struggled with as well. We've gone in front. I read today that we're the only team in league that have lost twice now from going in front. And I think, again, that comes back to game management. I said after the Birmingham that Carlos needs to be a little bit more savvy in games to protect the leads that we've got. Yeah, the style of football that he wants to play is attack, and that's brilliant. It's better to watch, but sometimes by doing that sort of style, if you've not got the ability or even the fitness to do it for full 90 minutes, you've got to look to change things. And I think a combination of all that last night resulted in us getting beat. On the flip side of that, like I say, it is nice to see us, playing that style of football and sticking with it. But I think we've got to probably accept that doing that will leave us vulnerable until we can bring in a little bit more quality and a few more numbers for me.
I think
Neil, let me tee you in here because I want to talk about quality in particular, and I want to talk about the quality of that goal. So your best mate on your tandem, Isaac, is involved. There's a good ball into Campbell.
It's Sir Isaac.
A wonderful ball, a touch. Isaac and Benz's great touch, and then he puts it across, and you know what happens then, don't you? Because I get out the old.
Oh, here we go. I'll be honest.
The Josh Caroma fan club kicks into gear, doesn't it?
If it'd been a study hard further out, I think he'd have put it over.
Yeah, talk us through that moment of quality and pick up from there.
To be honest, it didn't really belong in game. It was a very for me, it was a very sort of blanked each other out. Obviously, Poz has mentioned Wells hitting bar. I think he missed it. I think if he gets hold of it, that sails him at stand. Other than that, they want a great deal. We left their lad free on a corner, headed it wide. Should have probably done better with that. But we haven't really created much, have we? A couple of snapshots, and then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 passes later, it's in back at net. It was just a cracking goal that it had Carlos printed all over it, to be honest. But I think for the game overall, I think you've got to give Bristol City a lot of credit. I think it's been, all stats point to us being better side, but fair play to their manager, also a bit of a novice in management game, and he's done us with substitutions. He's totally changed formation, not once but twice, brought on 3 quality players. I mean, I thought that Semenyo arguably had a shout for man at match in about 20-25 minutes. He completely changed the game. And I think sometimes you've just got to sit back and accept that you've been done by a bit of quality. And I think overall, across the game, for me, it was quite even. And then their substitutes have tilted it. So I think Bristol, and it might not go down well with some people, I think Bristol probably slightly edged it purely on the manager having that bit of braveness. I mean, it was brave to change what he did. But you look at their subs, and that D-do cost them, 5 or 6 million quid. Jamie Patterson, we all know he's quality. And he showed it in bits last night. And that's Semenyo. I read Brady's preview with the lad from Bristol City, and he mentioned him. And you can see why, because I thought he was outstanding when he came on. Yeah.
Simon, talk us through. Sorry, Paul.
I was just gonna say there weren't great goals that Bristol scored either. To be fair, we did create his own problems. Because he's got his own little opinions to chuck in on Stearman, but that defending for that second one, there were umpteen chances for it, to get it clear. So by the same respect that Bristol quality for the goals, the actual goals themselves, didn't sort of work for him. If as such, it were they were, especially that second one, it were a bit scrappy, wasn't it?
Well, that's what I want to talk about, Simon. We'll talk about the first goal because from my point of view, it was quite lucky. Semenyo fell over and then he handballed it accidentally. But the rules state that if you accidentally handball it, and it plays on and leads to a goal, it has to be disallowed. So for me, that first goal shouldn't have stood. I don't blame the referee for missing it because it was a very sort of covert, accidental one. But it just seemed to be a bit of a mess, really, Simon, because Isaac and Benz has also put his hands up as well after the game and said that it was his fault for not tracking De Silva. He said he'd switched off and stopped tracking De Silva as well. Both goals were a bit sort of a bit frustrating, I guess.
Yeah, in our intro, Matt, you mentioned that kind of the heads went. And for me, it wasn't so much the heads went kind of with 70 minutes gone last night, but the legs went as well. And I kind of felt we saw the impact of, I think what's now something like 6 or 7 games in the space of 2 weeks with very little rotation in the squad. And kind of, I guess, in the example of Stearman, particularly a guy who was probably at the back end of his career now, kind of having played the majority of those and played a lot of minutes in that time, certainly relative to what he was doing last year. Yeah, you're right. I mean, two kind of poor goals to concede, and we were kind of exposed in that right back area when people moved on to the left wing, weren't we? I think Benz has perhaps been a little bit overly critical of himself. Yes, he's out of position, but even if he's in the right position, it's a very difficult kind of clearance for him to make then at that point. So soft goals to concede, and to come back to your point around the handball, Matt, I think it's one of those that in the Premier League, VAR looks at it, it's disallowed, but sadly, obviously, VAR is not at this level. Can't believe I'm saying that because I'm kind of probably its biggest critic, but it's one of those that kind of, had we had the technology, it probably wouldn't have stood.
Cosy, get fired in.
Silence.
I know.
It's still in Scarborough, isn't it?
He's on mute.
I'll tell you, I've only just sobered up. Anyone listening to me on Radio Leeds last night, I don't normally talk like that, but that's what it's like, alcohol. We won't be drinking any after tonight. But I thought Jada Silva was outstanding for Bristol City. I thought they're man of the match by a country mile. Obviously got the goal, created the first. Don't think we could handle him. He was doing a Toffolo one, as Toffolo's been doing pretty much to a lot of teams this season. Did worry me. But I suppose when we're playing just 2 games a week with a thin squad, you're going to get these energy dips and stuff like that as well. I mean, I said we'd get 3 points out of the last 2 games. Didn't say it this way around. And I think this is just the season that we've got at the moment. It's just going to be, who's got the most energy in the tank. I think of what all you guys have said has pretty much echoed a lot of my thoughts, with the goal. The second goal, as a away fan, they are the best. Can you imagine that as a fan? They're the best goals ever. Yeah, it's the post. Oh, we're going to win it last minute. No, we are. It's a scramble. Yeah, ooh, yeah. And, you go absolutely berserk at that kind of goal, don't you? Them are the ones where you see like everyone just rushing down to the front, losing their SHIT. But, of course, obviously, we were at the wrong end of it. So we're kind of looking at it with a bit of a negative slant, really, as well. Stearman, he didn't know whether we were coming or going once it come off the post. And I watched it 2 or 3 times today again as well, because obviously I'm kind of a sick man watching us lose goals. But the one thing that I kind of noticed, and I don't know if it was just one of those things, but there wasn't much tackling going on. There was a lot of backing off, a lot of space. It's almost like they're being told not to kind of commit or something. It was really weird because even in the replay today at 6 o'clock at night, we've lost something. Some get tackling here, stick it in, stop it happening. But yeah, I just overall, I'm just so positive about us at the moment. I put up a tweet at half time, so blame me that we've lost. But I said that for me, since Tottenham at home, it was the first time I've really been able to think, and Wolves away were a standout, but that was so weird one in that Premier League second season. But we'd lost all the no limits had gone that Tottenham at home. We were always playing with fear. For the first time last night in that first 45, and it wasn't a vintage first 45, I was like thinking, this is the first time I can really think of this is Huddersfield Town playing with no fear. It was really good. I've felt this for some time, but I was just watching it thinking, I'd love to play in this team because you're encouraged to express yourself, not, get forward, to try something, make something happen where I think maybe before, certainly under Wagner, kind of, we lost a bit of his mojo. So it's brilliant to have that back and I can cope. I mean, look where we are. We've won 4, we lost 5. I was nearly 50-50. I don't think we've got it in us to. I mean, you said game management there, Pos. I'm not sure. I don't want us to be like park the bus and stuff and kind of nick points, but I just look at where we play and kind of who we've got in our squad. And, I just don't think we've got what it takes to kind of grind that stuff out.
The thing is, at what point last night can you play for a point? Because they scored their goals very early. And it's, you don't settle for a 1-1 with half an hour left here. To be fair, Cowley had settled for the 1 after about 30 seconds.
He would. What would it be interesting?
You joke about that though, but I was looking at some stats and last season we went in front 20 times and we only lost 3 out of those 20. This season we've gone in front more than that.
How many of them did we draw though?
I didn't look at that, but it's still a point on board, isn't it? But if you look at, we've lost 2 from going in front already this season. It's one of them, because he said, I think we're just going to have to get used to the fact that we probably won't draw that many. We will either win or lose.
I think you look at the Birmingham game. We've gone for it there, being caught out. We 1-0 up with a minute left at Millwall, and we've carried on going for it and got another 2. So For me,
that's what I mean.
Give me that approach. Give me that approach. I think if we won 4, drawn 1, lost 5, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see 1-8, drawn 2, lost 10. I don't think we can just flip the switch in it, Neil. That's just how we're wired up. I don't think if it's right, just see it out. Maybe if it's 90 minutes, but I think you've got to take it out of, like some of you guys have mentioned already, to Bristol City, because at 1-1 they could be thinking, oh, this is a decent point. No, they went to win after that, and it made for a good spectacle. We just had nothing left in the tank. But I'm really excited, like, for Huddersfield Town at the moment, because it's a wafer-thin squad. No matter what the hierarchy tells you, we're short of players, and we know that. But there's a lot of positive signs from Carlos, and it's all about Carlos, isn't it?
But you want to watch it, Neil. You want to watch next game. I'm going to be good when the international break comes. And Christ, for the last 2-3 seasons, I've been thinking, bring that on.
I think players need it. I think players will be craving break, to be fair.
Should we talk about a better game then? Should we talk about Millwall a little bit? Millwall.
Just first, sorry, Matt, I don't know whether you're going to come at individual stuff after, but
I've got a player in focus, which is Mr. Stearman.
Right, okay, go on then, move it on, sorry.
I thought that might be I've got a player in focus and something about teams killing teams. But anyway, killing teams off. So Millwall in particular. So I think we had probably, I'm complaining about the handball in the Bristol City goal. But to be fair, when you look at the Millwall game, Christopher Schindler spears Jake Cooper quite early on, and that should really easily have been a penalty to Millwall. And again, that changes the complexion of the game.
There were 2, weren't there? I'm surprised they didn't get given.
One was before the ball came in, so that was just okay. And then, but Schindler, it was the free kick from deep, wasn't it? Where Schindler just pretty much wraps his arms around him and drags him to the ground. And in the Premier League, that's given because he's a stonewaller. But what was Stonewall was the Stonewall beauty of the 25 passing move that starts with Ben Hamer. And one thing I want to say is on the podcast last week, we mentioned 3 players that were poor in the previous week. That this is what we do. If people play poorly, we'll say that. If they play well, we'll say they played well. So 3 players we said were poor last week were Adama Diakabi, Ben Hamer, and Juninho Bacuna. And I think what was good this week was it was positive to see a good response from all 3 of them. Ben Hamer in particular at Millwall, I thought had a good game. Adama Diakabi started off, his first touch was ballooning the ball in the air, wasn't it, to try and make a clearance. But once he'd headed the ball back across goal, which resulted in the goal from Josh Koroma, and I won't do the conch and everything this time again because everyone looked really alarmed last time. But once he'd done that, I thought there was a much better performance from Adama Diakabi than what we'd seen before there. It's not to the levels that Isaac Mbenza's raised at the minute, but, we saw more positivity from him. And Juninho Bacuna came on for 45 minutes, a second half, and he's got 2 assists there, two great pieces of football from him to put us in. So well done on the players who've turned that performance round. The goal, though, 25. One thing that I bemoaned a little bit the previous week is that Huddersfield Town only seem to be able to play one way, and that's at full tilt, full speed. Sometimes a game calls for, being slowed down, being sped up, and we don't always have players that can do that. Aaron Moy was the master for me, slowing a game down when it needed to be and speeding it back up when it needed to be sped up as well. But I thought Huddersfield's game management against Millwall was outstanding. I thought after sort of 15 minutes where Millwall strong-armed us a little bit, I thought after then we got the ball down. Jonathan Hoggs had 2 good games this week. He, in particular, helped dictate Naby Sarr from the back against Millwall as well. Pinging balls around, and that goal was outstanding, and it's come from a really good move, and maybe there's something in there to be said for Alex Pritchard's contribution against Millwall as well, in that we've been able to up and down the speed levels while he's been on the field, but sadly he went off injured. But so the goal itself, who wants to wax lyrical about how fantastic? Well, you can wax lyrical about all 3 really. The goal. Bartosz Białkowski might not be overly fond of his contribution in the second one, but who wants to salivate over one of these goals? I'll let you put your hands up. All of you look like you just sat there in wonderment. Simon, you've got a really sort of happy glaze across you that you really want to sort of specifically delve into this. So off you go, mate.
I'm always happy, Matt. I'm always happy seeing your face.
It's the glaze, you know what I mean? It's the eyes.
I think it's the angle of the light, actually. But anyway, never mind. I guess kind of just reflecting on that goal, and similarly the one or a couple we've scored kind of already this season. just can't imagine us ever scoring that sort of goal under Danny Cowley. I was kind of probably said before, a big fan of Danny Cowley and what he achieved with Huddersfield Town, but you felt we were quite one-dimensional and would typically score crappy goals. But what was scored kind of at the weekend wouldn't be out of place, certainly in the Premier League, wouldn't be out of place kind of in Champions League football, wouldn't be out of place in kind of some of the top European clubs. And I guess that we've still got lots of way to improve, but kind of a delight to watch. And coming into this season for me, I was kind of confident about us at the back. My fear was scoring goals, particularly with the loss of Grant, the loss of Mounier. I wonder where the goals were coming from. And right now, kind of, that is probably arguably the least of our concerns. It's keeping out the other end, which has proven a bit of a challenge. But to kind of wax lyrical for the final time, such a good goal. Glad that kind of Corberan and people like Koroma, etc., have proved a few of the doubters wrong, myself included, and hope for a few more like that this season.
It reminds me of that goal at Man City that time. Main Road, Rob Edwards. It was very similar to that and I agree with what you say, Matt. A lot of those goals this season where we have played great football, it's been at full tilt and it's, get it upfield as fast as we can. And it was nice to see that we can. It was almost like we broke Millwall down, which were one of his issues throughout the Cowley year, and even so far this season. We've all sort of mentioned, do we have that quality to actually break a team down? And there were a lot of triangle passes and a switching play backwards and forwards, and it was just nice to see that. If we have got the ball in that sort of edge 18-yard box, 25 yards out, we can create something from that. So great goal, and I agree with what you're saying about Pritchard as well. We've all slagged him off on here and had his opinions on it.
Someone breaking through your wall there, Oz.
I think I have no idea why, but someone's decided to set a lot of fireworks off. And
it sounds like you've got Jack Nicholson ready to break through your door.
Sounds like Beirut, mate, honest. Maybe they're celebrating lockdown, I don't know. But it was nice to see Pritchard involved and, put a bit of quality on. So, decent goal all around.
It had training ground written all over it for me. It was just very, very slick. A lot of them were blind passes into areas. They knew exactly where it was going. So it had training ground and repetition all over it. And we've scored, till we feel like that this season now. It's great to watch, isn't it? I mean, when we've scored, I think 2 out of his last 3 or 4 goals have been started by Hamer and then led to 15, 20, 25. Yeah. And they've led to, goals from 20 seconds later from Ben Hamer having it. And he ain't exactly, not like Lossell against Man U launching it. It's been, a little pass out, 15, 20-man move, goal. And it's not before time. It's great to watch. And this is what it's all about for me now. It's all about watching a team who play good football, because we've been starved of good football since promotion season, if we're being brutally honest. Even then, I think it won't. I'd love to see Carlos with the quality that Wagner had, because we're still somewhere behind that yet.
I'd say that Wagner helped create some of that quality, because you look at some players like Tommy Smith under Powell, probably sat there thinking probably need a new right back. Hogg, he reinvented Hogg. Carlos as well. I'm going to throw a Hogg in for special. I know Stephen Chickens mentioned this on on a couple of occasions as well, and I agree that Hogg is. What's really funny is every time a new manager comes in, the first person they love is Jonathan Hogg, isn't it? And Wagner loved him. He said, Hogg is the Terrier spirit and the embodiment of the Terrier spirit. And it seems to be that Carlos Corberan has seen him immediately, that Hoggy is, an incredibly integral part, and he's like a fulcrum in that defensive midfield. And there are times where he drops too deep, especially if we play a back 3. There are times where he drops in a bit too much. But I thought against Bristol City he was apart from the final ball sometimes, but we come to expect that. But I thought Hoggy was excellent against both sides.
There was a couple of occasions last night as well where he kind of carried the ball across the halfway line and into their half. There was one in the first half where I actually thought he should have kind of let hit from 18 yards and had a go on goal himself, and I think he passed to the left hand side and kind of the chance kind of faded away. But he's obviously playing a very different role to what he's done under Wagner back. But kind of I thought last night was the best game I've seen Johnny Hogg have in a long time, and long may it continue.
I particularly liked how, and it's been evident for the last few games, really, how brave they are on the ball. Because a lot of it, they're playing people under pressure. People, getting man-marked, and they're still brave enough to play that pass. And that's starting with aim. I mean, we're having 3 or 4 passes before it's got 15-yard up pitch.
No, Ben Hamer, to be credit to Ben Hamer, pause as well. That what happened against Man United under 23s in pre-season could really have sat on him, on him, especially with what he's been through at Huddersfield. But to his credit, he's still having a go, isn't he? And still bringing
I think the
through.
no crowds has definitely helped. I think the no crowds has 100% helped him. And as long as we can't go there, long may it continue. Because I think by the time we can go back, if he can carry on the improvement and looking and playing like he is and brave like he is, I think he'll change a lot of people's opinions, mine included.
I'm going to
just to come back. Sorry, Neil. On you mentioned Lossell kind of a few moments since. Just what a shame it is to see kind of him so far away from first team football right now. Kind of obviously Everton brought in Olsen, didn't they? And someone who was kind of such a fan's favourite and someone who kind of did a lot for our club right now, kind of seemingly kind of career drifting nowhere. Just feels a real shame.
He's a wealthy man. He's a wealthy man.
Yeah, he's a wealthy man.
It's 50 bags a week, probably.
I know the amount of carrots you can buy with that.
The biggest compliment I can pay Carlos. I'm going to say Carlos Carvalho. He was a good manager, but Carlos.
He had a dream, I think.
This might be controversial. But for me, it's better football than under David Wagner with worse quality players. For me, that's an amazing kind of praise for him because he's asking. I mean, we'll come on Stearman. He's asking guys who really, let's be honest, Hogg, Stearman, are they really cut out for this? But you know what? These guys are buying in, and some of them are kind of looking good. But for me, I think it's better football. I really do. Don't get me wrong. The Wagner, it is Neil. We didn't score goals like this under Wagner. There were some great moments, and we were
kind of did
not
first
beaten.
Season, didn't we? And then once he had his team, that was it. It was all about game management, and I thought. Yeah. To be honest, once we went 1-0 up with Wagner's team, you got your cigar in, hadn't you, and your feet up, thinking we've got this now, and that was good. And the game, I enjoyed the game management from that. But what you're going to say, Cos, is that once we go 1-0 up, that's not enough, is it? They want 2, then they want 3, then they want 4.
I get a very similar feeling, I know. I sent a message to you guys today. Is it 5 years? I think it was exact. So when we sacked Chris Powell, so Wagner came in around about this time. And I started to get that very similar feeling that I got when Wagner came in, as you've just said, because you're taking very really average players under Powell and making them into something that they probably could never dream of being. And Carlos seems to be doing very similar with some of the players that we've now got. And I suppose we've got the added bonus of having the young players coming through that, hopefully Carlos will be with us long term and he can mould them into that particular style. From that side of view, it is, like you say, because it's very positive going forward.
He's a brave manager, mate. Yeah, he's a brave manager, and he's a brave with his selections and stuff. He's given guys a go. But the one thing that I just wish we could have, and I know there were, God, remember the outcry on deadline day? We need a striker. We're doomed without a striker. And that's probably proven to be kind of a bit folly, really. But the only thing I'd say against it is I would just wish we had someone to freshen it with Campbell. It's
he looked a bit knackered, didn't he, last night? Yeah. I thought he looked knackered last night.
Yeah, that's my only regret.
On the subject of needing to sub people about have you, I think what the Millwall game did show is that when we spoke in, probably better as an impact player off at bench, Millwall away, and he just sort of proved the point magically for us, didn't he?
He played 45 minutes though, didn't he? That was quite a long. I thought that was quite a long stint. But I thought he did well, but he needed a kick up the backside. He needed a kick up the backside.
He was still a sub though, wasn't he?
Shall I bring in some comments from YouTube first before we carry on?
Just to finish that, Millwall, they're top 6, they were like 5th.
They could have gone 3rd. They could have gone 3rd.
Yeah.
If we'd have won last night, though, we'd have been 7th. So
Swansea second. Swansea second. Millwall were 5th, and we've won there. And it's honestly, this is such huge progress for Luton Town compared to before. 100%.
My next point's going to sit on that, Cozzy, so I'll come to you on this next point. But let's read some stuff out for everyone who's online. So thanks to everybody who's joined us online. So N Shackle says he thought Bristol smelt blood in the last 20 minutes. Some game changes on the bench, some really good championship experience in their squad, and that's something that Stephen Chicken's gone on about as well in his Examiner articles. Is that Bristol could have effectively have fielded 2 decent championship sides with everything they've had. Also, Shackle says, can you play centre forward, Cosy? And there's been a couple of lookalikes for you. I've suggested David Speedy and he's suggested Luke Beckett. So I don't know which one's more preferential for you there.
Baldism, mate. I've had to cope with this for years, mate. It's hidden. It's a hidden.
It's nasty, isn't it?
Shocking, man.
Terrier 7-2 says he doesn't think we'd have scored a goal like that under Wagner. I'm going to prove him wrong by trying to think of something to dig out now. So, Mike, I'm going to think of something for you. Ollie Fisher online, Sempre Milan. Ollie says the best thing about the three, and this goes to what you said, Neil. So he said the best thing about the 3 goals we've scored like that this season is our ability to play out of the press, which shows the players are finally starting to play with some freedom and trust the system. So so that's a really good point about how they're playing with full confidence. And I think a good point of that was the goal against Derby where Nabisar plays that ball down the line to Toffolo, and both of them are pressed and they just carry on playing the ball forward. And
I think that shows, doesn't it, that the confidence that Carlos is instilling in them to be brave enough to play that even under pressure, and that mistakes are going to happen, and that he's clearly quite accepting of that fact, isn't he? Which has got to fill them with confidence to carry on playing like that.
Gary Wilkinson says Hoggy had a dip, but is a true pro, adjusting his game to the new style, playing forward. And then what else have we got? Ollie says he's Poz live in Beirut, which Poz I think you already said.
I live in Bradford. It's very similar.
Thing is, I'm getting them. I'm going to
say you two live quite close, don't you?
Neil's at 1 and I'm over.
I'm hearing him here first, and then on screen with Pozza.
Paul Gibson makes a good point. He says if you add Ward, Bakuna, and Pritchard to the bench against Bristol City, it may have been a bit different. And that's probably a really good point actually. In that,
totally forgot about Ward.
Once you get we get players back. Our squad depth is a little bit questionable, isn't it? But shall we move on to my next point? And that was, we have played really well against Millwall, a bit ropey against Bristol City. And there's a trend that I've noticed happening, which is I'm going to pick 4 games now, which are quite a good sample size, I think reasonable sample size of early form. Rotherham, Preston, Bristol City, and Birmingham, these 4 games. And each of these 4 teams all did something very, very similar against us. Rotherham initially first, and Preston and Bristol City might as well have been the same game. It was a mad sort of 5-6 minutes where they get 2 goals and we're out of the game. But Birmingham as well. So all of these teams, all they did was they sat deep and let us have the ball and made us play in front of them, and they gave us no space whatsoever to get in behind. All 4 of them. Rotherham, we had 1 shot on target, 5 off. Our expected goals under 1. We're going to throw in expected goals because it's all about quality of chances that we're creating. Preston North End, 3 on target, 5 off. Expected goals under 1. Bristol City, 2 on target, 3 off. Expected goals 0.75. And Birmingham, 2 on target, 7 off. Expected goals 0.74. To me, it looks like Carol Eiting was the man that we've perhaps brought in to be able to play this role, and he seems to have just dipped off a little bit of late. But do we need perhaps? January's coming around the corner, and you think you mentioned this. I can't remember if it was on our offline pause, but
no value in January.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Is our problem that we need someone creative who can play in front, or is it just too early to tell yet?
No, I'll tell you what our problem is, mate. Saturday, Tuesday for guys who's never hardly played any football. How's Carlos meant to do any work?
Rotherham wasn't that case, though, was it?
No, but how's Carlos meant to do any work on the training ground? It's absolutely incredible what he's done at the moment, because all you're going to have to do is recover after games. That's all you can do. I was listening to kind of a podcast the other day with someone bemoaning like someone in the Premier League doing Saturday, Tuesday, but bloody hell, their squads are miles bigger than ours. 8 less games, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I just think we've got to cut a lot of slack, and that's what excites me even more, because wait till Carlos gets to work on it, and when normal seasons comes back and we can actually go down and watch, kind of us play. But I've really got a lot of kind of, I don't know what's the word, but I can kind of just cope with it at the moment, because it's just so weird. I know you can say it's the same for all the teams, but what he's done when unlimited, it's the same again, isn't it? And then we're going to lose players to international duty. So even then, can you really do anything in this kind of little window? And then we're back again, aren't we? Saturday, Tuesday. So I just total respect to Carlos and the guys for doing what they're doing, because with our energy that we need to be Huddersfield Town under this man, I just think you've just got to cut a bit of slack. And Eiting, just like, God, he's probably living in an hotel still. I thought it was quite interesting last week. Could have read it wrong, me. But Pippa put a thing on his Instagram, and I thought, God, that looks like he's in an hotel there. Could be totally wrong. But it's like, this is what I mean. These guys are not even like he's settled, and it's so much better to come. That's what I'm just trying to say.
No, some good points. I agree with that, Cosy. I think there's some good points there. We've got an international break coming up as well, so whereby they can work with those that aren't called up for international duty. Pos, what do you think about have you noticed anything here in terms of the way that we play, or are you sort of going with Cosy there in that, we've probably not had enough time on the training ground to work on things?
I literally wrote that down to mention tonight. I think one of his problems is, and why we're still seeing some of the failings, I suppose, for want of a better word, is that between games we don't have that time. If you've played Saturday, you've got maybe Sunday as a recovery session, you might have a day off, so that's Monday gone. Tuesday you're working on your tactics. It's only maybe one proper session on being able to eradicate things. And if you're playing Saturday to Saturday, you've got 4 or 5 days there to work on stuff. And I think because it's bang on, there's players that aren't used to playing at this intensity, this regularly, lack of time in between games to sort of iron out little things, or not even iron out things, to put things in place for us going forward. I think once we do get a bit more time and stuff like that, I think you will see a massive improvement again. Just going back to your point though, on creativity, I do think that is one of the areas where we need someone to pick those passes. You've got 2 options there for me. When it gets like that, you make it wide, so you get the ball out to your wingers and look to put the crosses in, or you try and draw out the defence and then play your through balls and stuff like that, which I think against Millwall or Pritchard were on. We did that, and obviously for the goal, it was that sort of goal. If Pritchard can, keep going at that quality, then you could argue that we don't need someone. But is it a miss, isn't he? And obviously he's injured now, so I think it's not so much a number 10 that we need. It's probably someone who would sit behind a number 10, if that makes sense, to play in that
like an attacking 8.
Yeah, like an attacking 8. Yeah, but who can just pick that killer pass either wide or through a gap to to someone to run onto. But yeah, I do fully agree in what Cosy says. There's not much time between games here to implement new bits and bobs. So hats off to them for how they've played so far.
Simon, you've moved to the couch there. Nice and comfortable.
Change of scenery, Matt.
No fireworks going off there either.
No, not here, mate. Not here. Yeah, Carol Eiting's an interesting one. He obviously hasn't as many minutes recently as perhaps what he had when he first joined.
Yeah, he's had a bad injury, didn't he, sort of last year? And I think anybody who's played with an injury knows that sometimes you can play 3 or 4 games and then all of a sudden different muscles start pulling in different directions of it, and you start feeling things a bit more. I was always injured as a goalkeeper. Even injured and taking goal kicks used to absolutely kill my ankle and stuff and knee. But it was always sort of after 3 or 4 games. So I'm just wondering whether there's maybe something there where he's played quite a lot of games in a short space and all of a sudden.
I didn't know you used to be a goalkeeper, Matt, to be honest. I'm glad you've shared.
Played right back a few times, as well. Overlapping myself.
Yeah, I mean, Corberan's alluded to the fact that Eiting's obviously had a serious injury previously and that we need to manage his minutes. So, yeah, on one hand, kind of not surprising that he's not played as much, but I guess at the same time that's coincided with Lewis O'Brien's return to fitness as well, and obviously looking to get him involved. I think some comparisons have been drawn between Eiting and Moy. I think certainly kind of we've recognised probably that we've never replaced Aaron Moy in our team, and I think perhaps some hoped that Eiting was that player. But I think kind of Moy obviously was an exceptional signing and kind of an exceptional player for Bristol Town, and I think it'd perhaps be a bit unfair to compare the two. If Eiting can achieve arguably kind of half, 3/4 of what Moy did, then actually it'd be a very good signing and a good asset for us.
I saw somebody somewhere as well mention that when Eiting was Moy's age, Moy was playing for St Mirren. So there's obviously, and Moy wasn't particularly impressive, I don't think, for St Mirren. So there's
he had some hair then, didn't he? No,
he did. Blonde, he's shocker blonde hair. You know what I mean? He's not too far from Phil Starbuck.
It's just fantastic to know. I know we can lose any game, but for the first time for so long time, I just feel we can beat anyone now, and I never felt that before. Not in the Cowley, were kind of games you were thinking, well, I'm struggling here, I'll take a point here, we've got no chance in there and stuff. I'm my own worst enemy. I said we'd lose to Millwall. I should know better, but it's brilliant to have that back again, isn't it? That, I'm not saying no limits, but that freedom to think we can win a game, and it's worth tuning in because we can win this match. And I mean, I didn't even watch it live, that Millwall game, but it was just brilliant to get back in the car, like 3-0. And then when I watched it back, it's like we absolutely took them apart at times, second half. But then obviously Bristol kind of did a little bit to us. So I just love the fact that we know what was going to happen. And I think expectations are rising a little bit now. Obviously, when you take a lead in a game like we did at Preston and Bristol, you hope to see it through. But I just think for me now, Luton at home on Saturday, we'll come on that probably later on. But I expect to win that. And that's naughty, really, because we shouldn't be thinking ahead of a station. But that's what he's doing to us, is Carlos. He's making us not dream, but just be proud again and be able to show town. I'm loving it.
Getting you confident again. That's fine. So let's move on to our player in focus then, which I'll try and do one of these a week. So this week I thought I would pick Richard Stearman. The reason why I picked Richard Stearman is he seems to be getting quite a lot of stick on social media, and I think a lot of it's unwarranted. But we'll see what you guys think of this. So I had a look at Richard Stearman sort of this season. So currently this season, using statistical metrics and whatnot, Richard Stearman is Huddersfield Town's #1 ranked defender. The reason why he's the #1 ranked defender is made the most tackles per game out of everybody in our defence. The most blocks out of everybody is up there in the top couple in terms of clearances, second in most interceptions made, and offensively is actually Town's third best player, third highest ranked player, must be due to that overlapping run he did from right centre back, the other week. But in terms of is there because he's got an assist and he's got quite a good passing percentage and accurate long balls as well. So the question really is, I know he didn't have a great game, particularly last night against Bristol City. I'm not going to stick up. I'm not going to say that he was head and shoulders above anybody. But why is Richard Stearman in particular coming in for this much? Well, it's not massive amounts of stick, is it? But there's just a couple of little murmurs here and there. And, looking at that, he is the #1 ranked defender. And the games where he was excellent this year, Swansea away, I think it was Swansea away where he was top class. And so why do you think guys think it? Is it because he's 33 and people maybe think that, he's old, so therefore he's going to slow down or he can't keep it up? What's going on? Pause, you're nodding on Neil.
He's done all right, and he's done all right, to be fair. And I'll be honest, I think he's probably done better than I thought he was going to do.
I know I put more on stats than you do, Neil, but in terms of like WhoScored.com, he's ranked in the top 3 Huddersfield Town players this season.
And you can't argue with that, but I'm about to.
It's opinions. Opinions are welcome, aren't they? To be fair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the best compliment I can give him is being better than I thought he was going to be. I think he's probably surprised a few of us with his performances. I think the only thing, and I mentioned it last week before,
his hair. There's a couple of comments already about his dodgy hair.
It's a shambles, but just seeing him in a 3 with with Schindler and Sarr, or in a 2 with Schindler or Sarr, it just.
I don't think a 3. I think Naby Sarr struggles in a 3.
I thought Sarr was distinctly average last night, and we're lucky not
against
to get
Preston as well.
Yeah, I just think you can't play all 3, and you can't play Stearman as part of a 2. And I think if you're going to sacrifice somebody out of those, it's got to be Stearman. I think Edmonds Green's back in full training now, and I think Carlos has said that he'll be back after the international break. So I think that's the sort of the shirt he's going to be gunning for more than the other 2, because Sarr, new signing, generally speaking, is going to play in it. Schindler, club captain, generally speaking, going to play. But on the flip side of that, I think what is interesting is when we do drop it to a 4, when he's subbed one at centre-backs, it's been Schindler a couple of times now, hasn't it? And he's left Stearman and Sarr on.
Yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah, and I just think it leaves us a little bit exposed. If we are going for it, I just think it leaves us a little bit exposed on break, and I would like to see one of an Edmonds Green or a Critchlow inside for a bit of youth and a bit of pace.
We had this similar conversation with the other week, and I think if it's a right-sided one, I'd rather see Romani Edmonds Green because of the because he likes the balance, doesn't he? But I agree in that when Stearman gets caught out wide, that's where you see things happen. He got skinned against Brentford, wasn't it? Against Brentford, he got caught wide against Norwich with the back pass. And Paul Gibson's mentioned online, he's done well, but he's got those moments where he can cost you, and that is right. But who else wants to dive in? Pos, you were about to make a point, weren't you?
I see Stearman as, inverted commas, an old school centre half, and I think probably that's why he comes in for some stick, because although you've put him in a good light,
kick it, head it, that kind of thing.
with his passing ability, he is that sort of old school centre half where, you know, he probably a lot of the work that he does goes unnoticed. You know, like you say, kick it, edit, just little niggly bits and bobs with a centre forward that he don't always sort of make a sliding tackle and, you know, crowd go, well, no crowd
his
there.
completed pass
really
rate is the highest
right
out of all defenders, out of all the centre backs.
Yeah,
apart from Critchlow, oddly.
He don't do what I'd class as memorable good things, if that makes sense.
Doesn't make that, like Nabisar does that massive block, doesn't he? And then, you know, he made a massive block, and he doesn't make that. Because I was surprised when I saw the blocks. You remember Nabisar's flying massive, they look amazing, don't they? And then he said, and I like,
the thing that what happened though is like,
I remember some of
the things that he does wrong, like you know, if you said to me what's Richard Stearman done this season, my first thought would be, well, he cocked up with that back pass against Norwich, was it? Probably at fault for a couple of goals last night, and and maybe couraging down left wing when probably should have been back in centre half. So it's very easy to remember the bad moments because it's a bit like being a keeper, I suppose. You can make really, you know, you can have a steady away game and make 5 or 6 routine saves that still need saving, yet make a mistake and it's 1-0 down, and all of a sudden you've had a really bad game. And I think that's where Stearman comes in for a little bit of stick. I think the age thing as well is an immediate thing to go to, or he's old, therefore he's not very good. But, you know, overall, as Neil says, is not just him, but everybody else as well. You know, you can put him in that bracket of done better than what we thought he would, which again is testament to Carlos.
Age don't really matter, does it? I mean, Thiago Silva's at Chelsea. I know he's a top job.
The oldest man on the pod would say that, yeah.
35 years old, but I think a lot of it, you know, social media stick is. I mean, I got a final because I went on Radio Leeds last night and mentioned it, but for me, Critchlow obviously was waiting for his turn, kind of strangely not being a part of it, and people have probably seen Stearman. But the one thing I'd argue back, though, which kind of contradicts maybe a little bit what I said last night, is I think he's been better than Schindler has. And
I think yes.
I just think, Matt, he looks ungamely. He probably doesn't suit. If you had to pick from scratch, would you bring him in now in a Carlos team? No. And maybe he is getting a bit of kind of stick, but like Paul says, there is things that kind of spring to mind where he has cost us points. And I'm sure Edmonds Green as well, who's going to be fit at some point. I think if we're being honest, he's probably going to be fall back in the pecking order, and the young guns will get their chance. But it's you can't knock his effort, and he'll be good backup to have. And I'm sure. I mean, I don't really know him. No one does really, but I think behind the club, he's one of those in the kind of background. Maybe Mark Hudson, similar-esque in the promotion year, that he does a lot of good, and he'll do a lot of good with our young centre halves when kind of nurturing them through. So I think some of it is a bit unfair, but I was a bit mad with him last night. His just reactions were, especially for that second goal. It's like, come on, man.
I think from my point of view, I think he kind of deserves a lot of credit. I see him very much as still Cowley's signing, a man who was brought in to shore up a defence at the back end of last season to play the Cowley way, manage games out, be that kind of traditional centre half that we spoke about, head it, kick it, etc. And the way he's adapted his game to suit Auburn's style, I think we should give him lots of credit for that. It perhaps isn't too unfamiliar to him in the sense that kind of overlapping centre backs, which he's been asked to do, was how Chris Wilder played quite a bit at Sheffield United, and obviously he was part of that team for quite a while. But I think on one hand he deserves a lot of credit. On the other hand, kind of right to highlight that he's been at fault for a few goals. I think for me, in the team that we're playing, where we kind of commit people forward, we rely on pace, and pace is not one of his strengths. And when you put him alongside Schindler, it is a very slow back two relative to some others. So I'm not sure in the long term if they can be kind of the partnership. And I think kind of just on Edmonds Green, he's a player that excites me. Obviously, because we saw him away at Charlton, he looks really good that night. His time at Swindon, a lot of people spoke really highly about him. Keen for him to get some minutes, really, and that's probably going to be at Stearman's expense.
Right, okay, we'll move this on a little bit. So there's some good comments coming online that I wanted to read, a couple of them, and it's Paul Gibson says, he mentions that Stearman likes his passion, fight and leadership, but he does have those moments, like we said. But he also says that if Critchlow, Roman, Edmonds Green play, then Stearman is sort of the ideal candidate to play alongside him because of his communication and how he brings them through, like he did with Critchlow against Nottingham Forest. And Ollie Fisher says centre halves are always overlooked for the things they do well and remembered weeks later for errors they make, and it comes with the territory. But Stearman has been man of the match a few times, which which is correct. And he does like Thiago Silva as well. Right. So Canalside. So the club finally brought out the protracted video about Canalside. Other than that, Mark Devlin needs some braces for his trousers and a decent mask. What did you guys learn from this? So I've been there a couple of times. So I'll keep mine until the end, and I'll see. Keep what I think to the end, and I'll let you guys fire in. So who wants to kick us off with what they saw on the video? Neil, do you fancy talking us through?
Can do. We've got a lovely big tank.
Irrigation, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a cracking irrigation tank. I'll be honest, I think it's coming for a lot of criticism. I think it's an easy one to beat club with. It looks all right, doesn't it? It's a training ground, isn't it? It looks all right. And from what Phil Senior, who's an ex-pro, has been down there and said it's a phenomenal setup. I'd listen to him on that one, to be fair. I just think my biggest question, and I've asked this direct, is, where did the multi-story building go? Are we building the stand at the side of the pitch that was looked so we can go and watch games down there? They're stuff that aren't happening. There's been reasons behind those. With the sounds of it, it wasn't ever a 20 million project.
Just on that, Neil, I'll kick you back off, but they've removed the initial announcement from the HTFC website, but Wayback Machine, you can dig these things back out.
There's two ways to look at it, isn't there?
Well, they did say the initial it'll be between 15 and 20 million. So so it was never actually set as 20. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, even 15, it's not going to reach that, is it?
Probably not. No.
I think the previous chairman, I'm going there. The previous chairman stated very loudly that it would be his legacy for the club moving forward when he'd left. People's thoughts on that probably interesting, because it's clearly not happened. Is it on Phil then to throw all the money at that out of his own pocket, out of the club's pocket? I don't know. Probably,
well, that's the thing, because initially we thought it was ring fenced. The money had been earmarked and ring fenced, but it's not really. It's not really. Doesn't seem to be.
Did Phil not say that money was staying in bank, though? Did it not?
No,
I don't know. It's not been very clear from what I've seen.
The 6 million was still there.
That was Carling's grant money originally on it, but I think Dean Oil were very vocal about it. Were 20 million quid, 20 million quid, and it would be his legacy of the Premier League era and getting Town up there. That going forward would have this multi-million-pound fantastic facility. I think the biggest fault of it, if we're being honest, is that at the time, and you can't beat the current regime about this. At the time, we saw this all singing, all dancing
video
of what it is, and I think you see it, you sold it, you expect it. So I think fans are, people are going to question it. I think if we'd have still been in Premier League, nobody would give a toss and would have probably spent 25 million on it by now. But I think the fact that we've been awful since, and there's been some questionable decisions in amongst, I think people are using it as a bit of a stick.
It's just another disappointment, isn't it, really?
And it is a disappointment. I'd have loved to have gone down there and watched a few B team games and
stand,
might have been that little stand at side.
It looked amazing, did that? I think that's probably the biggest disappointment. That
was the thing for me to be able to go down there and watch, because you used to go down and watch a few games propped up at side at other pitch and enjoyed those. So to have a little stand there as well, that'd have been cracking.
Yeah, it would.
I think they're trying to make it more professional, which I fully understand why they've done that. I think a lot of fans are disappointed that they've taken the sort of fan interaction / connection out of it. I don't see why they've had to do that, I'll be totally honest. I think they could have still had the two combined and separate at the same time.
I do know that David Wagner wasn't a fan of the fans being there.
Yeah, well, he ain't here anymore. So
you can't have fans at a championship training ground, guys. Bloody hell.
They weren't big on that.
I don't see why you can't keep the two separate.
You can section it. I mean, I went down there when we were in Premier League, and when it used to have the bar and all that. And my youngster, Zanka invited him down to sign a shirt that he'd caught when we beat Man United, and he had a game of FIFA with him and all that sort of stuff. And there were actually, you'll probably remember, guys, if you've been down there with scouting and stuff, there were a private section that were just for players. You couldn't just walk in and start wandering around. So I think there's
that was one of my points.
There's a medium sort of, you can have a bit where fans can go, but not. You don't need to be walking down the changing rooms, do you? Do you know?
No. To be fair, Matt, when I went to Schalke last year, a bit different setup, but theirs was very similar. So I'm kind of arguing against my own point here, but like loads of training pictures, that special stand and that as well. And then on a match day, they kind of had like different supporters bars and stuff as well. So I mean,
honest,
like I said, during the week,
decent,
during the week, no public
by look
access.
of it, it looks good. It looks like a good setup, doesn't it?
Just coming back to the video, sorry. Just going back to the actual video, though, it were, the way that the video put together didn't really sell it to me as much. It's probably a lot. I know it sounds really bad, but the video probably did it an injustice. I know it was 50 minutes long, and I tried to cover every single minute point, but to me, that made it almost look worse than what it was, because we were just basically, being shown round somewhere. You've already mentioned about Devlin, but his bloody shirt popping out the bottom of his jacket and his mask being all over it. All that to me just looked a bit amateur, and it kind of took away from the actual development. I mean, because of you work near me in Leeds, Wellington Place and stuff like that, we've just had a video sent through because we're supposed to move in February. It was 5 minutes. It was professionally done. It had sort of flybys and little, montages of stuff, and it basically just hammered on the key points of what's there, what we needed to know. And I think Canalside would have been portrayed so much better, and we'd all be saying a lot more positive things if we didn't hear 5 minutes talking about a water tank that can hold some water. As fans, do you really care about that? Do you need to know that that's how the water pitch? No, you don't. You know what? Care.
To my shame, Pos, I found that interesting to talk about the water.
To my shame, I really did. Than it does about anybody.
Can I kind of stick up for the club here, though, for me? Because Danny Ward got interviewed. I mean, you might say Danny Ward were here before in the old Canalside, and even this development, and he were buzzing. I cannot believe how good the facilities are now. So does it really matter what we think? I get Neil. I totally agree with you on the stand. Yeah, I'd love to see that. You see a lot of these kind of training grounds with the stands built in and stuff, especially the Premier League. But apart from that, does it really matter what we think? Does it really matter about the video? Does it matter, Neil?
Cosy, did you not hear at start of what I actually said?
You're watching highlights again, watching La Liga again. What you cause?
Oh no, I didn't deal.
I can see it in your glasses. It's reflected. Look, see the football kicking in your glasses.
I couldn't agree more on what you said.
I'll let you watch it back.
It is a fair point, though, because if players are happy, managers are happy, backroom staff are happy. What's he got?
Just to cover
it, I said that it's a bit of a stick to beat the club with, and Phil Senior said it's an excellent setup, and he's a pro footballer. So
a lot of that's been there. I think the Players' Lounge has been there for 2 years. So a lot of it hasn't just been built. A lot of it's been done over the last few years. The cryo chamber, for example, has been there for quite a while, and other bits and bats. And I think they're still going to add to it as well, aren't they? Yeah. So I think they're still going to add to that. So what I think we'll do is we'll move on, and the sponsorship has just been Canalside. Canalside. It's not what it was promised, but it still looks all right. So the players are happy.
Can we go Green Bowling or what? I've got my jacks ready here. Come on, get them.
Leeds Road playing fields, mate. It's all going down there. So everything that was at Canalside.
You're bad, you're bad, son.
There might be a bar there, but it's a little bit of a walk.
Too tin pot for me. I don't want water tanks, mate. I want pints of a striggle each.
Mate, did you not see how much water it shifts through there? I thought that was really cool.
Anyway. Nobody cares. Move on.
I liked it. I'm going to stick with my water. But anyway, sponsorship. So this has been in the pipeline. See, I'm doing water jokes now, pause. But this has been in the pipeline for a little bit now with what they're doing. It feels a bit like a meat raffle in some ways, doesn't it? But yeah. So it's going to be like there's three away charities that are going to appear on the away shirts. I read the Examiner one. I didn't read the official one, but I don't know if they're going to be alternated or what the order is. But I think Kirkwood Hospice, Town Foundation, and Yorkshire Air Ambulance were the three, which is great. And then they're also going to try and auction those off and give them to other charities as well, which I thought was fantastic. I think that's really good. The home one was a little bit more convoluted. in that I think Phil has because he's put Pure as the main business sponsor, which suggests that Pure Business Group have put the bulk of the money in, and then what they're going to do is they're going to raffle off I think £250 a ticket, was it, Pos? Which would potentially make over the last 17 games, because it starts at Middlesbrough, so there'll be 17 games left, which will make the club around 85 grand if they sell all the tickets. And but what it seems to be, and I got this clarified with my buddy Stephen as Chicken as well, was that it seems to be that they're going to have a different sponsor every week at every home game, which I didn't realize was allowed, but apparently so. So it's going to be really interesting to see what sponsors are coming up, whether we're going to get some good ones or whether we're going to get, hopefully Magic Rock will be there. I think we'd all love a Magic Rock Huddersfield Town top, wouldn't we? Or Dixon's Ice Lollies and things like that. And
I think to do it like they have.
Goes back to Pete O'Toole's artwork as well, with a lot of the stuff he had on, and hopefully we'll see some pretty cool ones. But Neil, kick us off.
I think if you scroll back a few pods, I think you'll find that Pos had actually put this forward as an idea.
Yeah, I'll take my commission.
He had inside info, didn't he? It's been in the works. It's been in the works for months. This Pos.
So I'll take 10% of any sales. Thank you.
Credit where it's due at Bradford City fan corner. But yeah, he had that as an idea, and if the club have listened to that and moved forward with that, brilliant. It shows that they are listening to what's being said. So I think we had a similar discussion about shirt offers and stuff like that, and they brought out an offer on that, didn't they? The bundle. So fingers crossed that the communication thing is on the rise, and if that is the case, fair play when they're coming up with some good stuff. I think to do it like this, I think they must have some people lined up to buy them all for certain games. Just jump in with a $5 grand and away you go, your name's on shirt for a week. Because I think they'll struggle. I think I worked out it'd be 320 odd different companies who actually won't get on the shirts, which £250, even for a little company, £250 is a lot of money to throw away something you're going to get no back for, unless you're going to be offered some form of backup advertising for that investment. But I think there'll be quite a lot of businesses around Huddersfield who've got £5 grand spare to chuck about to throw on there and claim it back against tax, etc. So I think they'll probably shift them all, to be honest.
Simon, what do you think? What do you make of it?
I think it's a really good idea, novel concept. Similar to you, Matt, I was under the impression that you were only allowed 3 different sponsors on your shirt per season.
Apparently it's charities. Apparently it's 3 different charities. So.
Okay, cool. So kind of you can have as many different shirt sponsors as you like then in terms of businesses. So in that respect, it would work. And I kind of sense it could be kind of the way forward into next season and the season after as well, potentially, albeit maybe slightly larger amounts. But in a world where it's probably becoming increasingly difficult to get sponsorship in the way you could do maybe 5-10 years ago, this could be kind of more of a solution for kind of next season and beyond. The only frustration is it's taken us now to do it. Kind of the whole charity element, the kind of goodwill that the club might have generated from that, I think has been scarred a little bit by the fact that it's clear they've tried to get someone kind of to cough up some more money to go on the shirts. They haven't been able to achieve that, and we're now in November, kind of a quarter of the way through the season, and this is the outcome. But that said, kind of the club have moved to this position and probably should be kind of commended for doing so.
Anyone else want to take up the baton?
Yeah, I think well, obviously, like I say, I mentioned something very similar. It's something that we do at grassroots level and Sunday league level. I'm sure we're not the only people that have done it, where you raffle off a chance to sponsor it, normally for a full season rather than match by match. But they've obviously sort of taken that route maybe to get more people interested. Like Neil says, I'm sure there'll be people out there. And if you think if businesses have an executive box down at town, they'll probably pay a lot more than $5 grand to do so. So I'm sure that they'll get rid of it. And it's a nice novelty, isn't it? If I were a business owner, to have my business name, on front of shirt, even if it's a one-off, you get from, if I understand it right, you get all the shirts from the match as well. So
yeah, you can either take the shirts or raffle them. Yeah. So
there's a chance for other charities to get involved there, and I'm sure if us boys club together, we may be able to get a TCC.
There's a couple of offers already. People offering to chip a £5 in, but I think 250 quid for one ticket's a bit of a stretch. But I wouldn't want people to do that.
Maybe one of them put it out there if everyone, if people want to to donate and give us a chance, then who knows? Although some of the things we say about club, they might not want us on their shirt. We might get pulled out of that one and put it back in. But
stick Cozzy's face on the front of the shirt. That'd look great.
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's different. And if the club go about it the right way, I've not seen much national coverage of it, today. But if they keep pushing out, it's different, and people will pick up on it, and it puts us in a good light. We're helping, local businesses and stuff like that. So yeah, fair play. It's a good idea.
Any more on the sponsorship? Going once, twice, 3 times. Okay, we'll move on. So let's have a look online, see if we've got anything. Thomas Bradshaw's backed you up, so Tom's there. So we might get a couple of drawings maybe today. So good to see you, Tom. Credit to Tom on the work he's done recently as well. Those Top Trumps cards look really good, so I'm going to buy some of those for Christmas, I think. So a couple sort of saying that we'll chip in a fiver, but I'm not sure about that. Right, so let's move on to the B team. So the B team they've only played a couple of games that I've seen, but Poz kind of stole my thunder a little bit at the start of the show when you went off piste, shall we say.
Sorry.
But one interesting thing from the B team. So the B team have had 2 games recently. One was against Farsley Celtic and the other was against a Grimsby Town 11. I think you question whether the opposition that they're coming up against is decent enough or not. But I'm sure the club have got a good handle on that. They beat Grimsby 6-3 today. And one man who's in the goals is Kieran Phillips. He's got 7 goals in 3 games for the B team, and that and the 5 striker comment has echoed around every part of Huddersfield and beyond, hasn't it, for the last couple of weeks? That the chairman says, and all of a sudden Kieran Phillips in the B team is starting to look. He's 20 now, and it comes to a point where you've got to make that push forward and make that leap forward. It looks like Kieran Phillips is potentially going to make that leap, which would be fantastic. Huddersfield lad who left us at a young age to go to Everton and has come back.
He looked good, Matt. I saw him last year get an hat-trick last season when we could still watch a game, and he just looked something different to me than.
Does he remind you a little bit of? I hate to compare, but he reminded me a little bit of Patrick Bamford in a way. In that he leads the line and he's quite quick. And that kind of player. Not big, not particular, doesn't have outstanding physical attributes, but he works really hard and he runs that line.
You know what though, Matt? There might be a spot on our bench soon for someone like him. Why not?
I would say why not? If he's a striker, there's no better than a striker who's scoring goals at any level. Confidence is there. What is it, 7 in 3? Put him on bench. Why not? Give him 20 minutes.
See what he's got. Yeah, I'm all for that. And another interesting point today is the new Spanish signing. Vallejo played 33 minutes before going off. I'm not sure if that was due to an injury or whether they're just carefully managing him. But
because Grimsby were absolutely freezing, mate, compared to Madrid.
I was really amused actually.
Grimsby whipping in. Yeah.
Grimsby had a goalkeeper called Battersby, and I thought that was quite a good name for.
It's funny you should mention that. I saw an interview today with Sergei Reguilon, who signed for Tottenham from Seville, and he said.
So now you've got that from Grimsby Town, to be honest, mate, but I'm going to let you go with this.
Hear me out here. He says, what do you make of it? He says, I'm absolutely loving the Premier League, but what a country this is when it gets dark at 5 o'clock. I said, I'm just not used to it anymore. I'm not used to this. Welcome to England, mate.
Yeah. But yeah, Vallejo's played 33 minutes today, so that's a good point. So any of you guys want to dive in more on Kieran Phillips or Vallejo, then now's your chance before I give you the old 3-2-1 move on. Now, Neil, you're muted, mate.
First team striker, get him on bench.
On bench. Quite unanimous. I think we're all pretty much saying, give him a blast. Why not? Give him a blast. Why not? Campbell struggling, Danny Ward still.
I'll be honest, as a fan, just to quickly on it, as a fan, I think you 2-1 down last night, you're chasing the game a bit. I think we'd have all been quite happy to see him come on for the last 10-15 minutes and have a bit of a go. Why not?
Why not?
I think so.
Just sort of like going back to last night, one other thing I mentioned, but I love the fact Carlos just stormed off down the tunnel after. He was brilliant with that. Well, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see shaking hands and doing all that. He's a winner, mate. He don't like losing. So that was just a strange one that just come to me. But I love that though. Stormed straight down, didn't it? See you later, mate.
I'll tell you what I liked as well, Cozza.
From Marston's.
Can't beat Marston's, it's great. But I'll tell you what I quite liked as well, because I was quite unhappy about the handball, and Oggy posed it to him afterwards, and he completely changed the subject. He sort of said, forget about it. And then he started talking about issues within the game, and he didn't take. It could have been an easy out to blame, sort of a handball on on the performance, and he didn't take it. And instead he sort of said, we've got to learn from certain situations. And I thought, what, fair play, that's decent.
He might, again, we mentioned before similarities to Wagner, but I do love the fact that he knows why we've lost. I know it sounds a stupid thing to think, well, he's the bloody manager, so it should, but
some of them don't.
The interviews I've seen, it's like he pinpoints, I know why we've lost this game. And it's really good. That's what I mean. It gets you kind of thinking, wow, we might have someone special here. I think we have,
As long as they know how to act upon it next time, then brilliant. Wagner did, and I've seen great signs in Carlos. And I think we're all part of the Carlos Corberán fan club, aren't we? Even win, lose or draw, I think we're all fully invested in that one. So speaking of fully invested, we've recently partnered with FanHub, which is a new app which is coming out soon, which is going to centralize a lot of fan content. So we posted something out on Twitter recently, and Brady, who isn't with us tonight because I think he's on a promise, is going to do a little article about FanHub. So keep your eyes out for that, but we won't go into too much detail just yet. So we'll move on to Luton. So Brady usually does the previews. I think he's got stuff ready as well, but he's not with us. So let's dive in. So Luton Town, I think form-wise, Cosy, they've seemed to have tailed off a little bit. You look at the form guides, how they do, how they're getting on. We've got a scout in the house, haven't we?
0-0, mate. But the one thing I've noticed is they've got a lot of big guys, a lot of set pieces. I think any Town fan in worth their salt does not need reminding of Luton Town at home.
Well, it was a bizarre team. Preston have won 3-0 at Reading.
Doesn't surprise me. Preston win away from home every day.
Away from home and crap at home, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, Nathan
Reading,
Jones.
It's bubble gone early. Reading, 2 defeats on trot.
Nathan Jones, mate, you've got to say fair play because there's not many managers. I mean, you've only got to look at our good friend Mr. McCall down the 606 to
Keith Jegwin, as you called him to my
he's going back and he's making complete balls on it. But Nathan Jones went back. He was probably lucky that the fans kind of weren't there.
He wasn't popular. They were booing him, weren't they? Yeah.
And wow, they did a real number on us and everyone. I think didn't we have him? I think a few of us had in Luton again in the bottom three, but they started off really well, and that we're just gonna have to be smart. Don't give them free kicks away. Don't let them have an opportunity to get kind of men in the box.
They'll sit deep as well, mate. This is what I'm on about. They'll sit deep and they'll try and pick us off on the counter. It's going to be a tough one, I think. I thought we stood more chance of beating Bristol City than Luton just because of the styles. But Bristol City surprised me with how they played on fair play.
I just think with international breaks, it's always good in it to get that positive result before going into it. As a fan, never mind a player. I really,
because you want it back then, don't you? During the international break, you're aching for it back. Whereas if you lose, you're like, I can stay on international break for the rest of the year. I'm not bothered. But Luton Town coming up. So Luton, very sort of obstinate. You're right. Pause.
Sorry, guys.
Fireworks smoke going off over there. Yeah.
Not Corona. Don't worry. I'm all right.
Get on the app, man. You don't know that.
Get tested.
Every now and then, for God knows how long you can.
I'll tell you what, lockdown for 28 days tomorrow, that's an idea.
I'll tell you one thing, if you go with this proof, there's one thing glaring we haven't talked about yet. Sheffield Wednesday's point deduction being halved.
I'm not happy about that. It just seems, what's the point? What's the point in handing out a
if they vote about them now, they get rid of Gary Monk and get somebody who can keep them up. You
mean like David Wagner?
They'd still be bottom three. Well,
did you see their result last night, Neil? I'm huge upset. Did you see what they did? Beat Brentford, man.
I'd sack Gary Monk together. I hate him. Can't stand them, man.
Sorry, pause. Cartoon pause.
Yeah. I'm more like Tintin than Gary Monk, but there you go. But just to bring it back to Luton game, I think they're just below us in table, so it is one of them really where it will. I think it comes back to what Cosy said right at the start. So who's going to be the better performer on the day? I think we're going to have a lot of games like like we've had, and certainly Luton will be one of those. To me, the middle from 8th anyway down to even 8th right down to probably the bottom. Everyone's probably on an equal footing, and the games that decide it are going to be the one-on-ones. I don't think you're never going to get teams that'll go on a 6 or 7 unbeaten or 6 or 7 beaten. Look at some of the results that we've just mentioned there. So, it almost, I know it sounds silly and a bit obvious sometimes, but you've almost got to play it game by game. You can't think, so you hear some managers say, let's have a 6-game mini season and see where we are and stuff like that. But I don't think that's going to be one of those seasons. I think it's going to be let's look at his opponents and let's see what we can get out of this game, and just keep building that way, because I've got a feeling that sort of certainly the middle section, anyone will beat anybody, and you need to be on it all the time.
Home advantage, Pos, doesn't seem to matter anymore. We're hearing a player kind of get interviewed about it. Says the only good thing about being at home is we don't have to stay in an hotel the night before. Yeah. Says apart from that, you've got no difference really in that as well. And look at our results. They're a good example. We seem to be better away at the moment than at home. You know, we're kind of. I don't think it makes much difference, but
I think it just becomes a leveler, doesn't it? It's you're just on you're on a grass pitch, and in some ways, as I think Neil touched on it before. Not having fans there will help some players and not help others. And, you know, it's 11v11 on a pitch with no fans to influence anything. And I think that's probably why some of the results are going as they are, because it is whoever turns up on that particular game will win. And it's as simple as that.
I think the point you make about being in hotels and travelling is kind of relevant, though, because obviously Luton away at Rotherham today, they'll be back down the motorway and back up probably on Friday night, be kind of for Saturday's game. I think kind of just maybe an extra day's rest for Town this week, kind of coming at the end of a long run of fixtures.
Yeah, I thought that for Preston, and that didn't work out.
Well, yeah, that's true. What do I know? I'm kind of confident going into Saturday's game. I think we've played enough good football lately to be able to get a result. I think it'll probably be what do I think? Probably a low-scoring game. Luton don't score many.
Kick the predictions off then, side, because Brady will be sat there listening, going, "We need predictions."
I think we're going to nick it 1-0. That's my view.
Neil, you love a prediction. What are you going for?
I got last one right, didn't I? 2-1 Bristol. Brady wasn't happy about that. I'll go 2-1 Town.
I'm going to go 1-1. I've just got a feeling that it's going to be a bit of a tricky one. I think they're going to sit deep, and I think we still see a lot of tired legs on both sides, small squads. HTFC Online says... That's our old blog, is that? But HTFC, who is online, says Luton will be a difficult game. First goal vital. Tend to struggle against teams that park the bus, and we have to move the ball quickly to break their lines. And I think that's a really good point. If we do that, I think we'll win the game, but it's going to be a struggle to do that. So, which one? Pause, Cos. Who's going to go?
I said 2-2 against Bristol. I think a similar scoreline. We'll go for Desmond again. I like a good Desmond.
A Desmond.
I don't think we'll see a goal, mate. I think it's going to end 0-0.
It's going to be a bit of a stinker. Cool. So I think that's it for this night, guys. Any other business from you guys?
Nope.
Excellent. So I think that'll do tonight. So thank you to everybody online that came and joined us. Thank you to Tom for his excellent drawings as always. Thank you to Magic Rock for sponsoring us, and thank you for putting up with us for so long as well. So it's been pleasant to do this for you guys again tonight. So thank you very much.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. Colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, they're the pride of the town, and the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So Town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So Town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.